it's Isabel, A Curious Tale. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I've done some sewing content in the past and I want to continue with that, but this time just on a bit of a larger scale. So just to set the scene, when I lived in Nepal, I had a clothing brand called Clove Moon. The meaning behind that, to try and say it quickly, is these tattoos which I share with my mother-in-law, and they're traditional Newa tattoos, Newa being an ethnic group and culture indigenous to Nepal. And this is a clove flower, or luang ko phul in Nepali. This is a moon, or chandrama in Nepali, and the name just celebrates these tattoos that we share. She got hers when she was about 12, and then I did maybe 6 or 7 years ago. My husband did them for me, and so it just celebrates these tattoos. And the brand also worked a lot with Newari textiles like Hakpatasi, and just celebrating all these things. And yeah, I like the meaning. So we had back in Nepal like a tattoo studio, a restaurant, and I had my little boutique, and I would sell the Clove and Moon clothing and some vintage clothing and things that I'd bring over from the UK or that I'd sourced there. And it was really fun, but moving to the UK, it just wasn't possible to keep it going, so I had to pause it, and was just waiting for, you know, a good time to see how I could start it up again in a way that would work with my surroundings, because I would go and visit the places where they would actually weave this Hakpatasi textile. Again, I could like talk forever about how much I love the textile, all its meanings and the things I did with it. And I've got some content on my YouTube from many years ago that sort of shows a tiny bit of that. But yeah, I could talk forever about it, but basically, yeah, I didn't have like the access that I could just nip to the weavers and grab some textiles or do the things that I was doing there here. So I paused it, and I mean, there's not going to be a right time to start it again, certainly not to the degree I was doing before, but I thought I really want to just get back into it, even if it's in a far smaller capacity, just to continue sharing my love of textiles, of hand sewing, creating, trying to be as close to zero waste as possible, of like Nepali textile culture and iconography, and also Scotland, where I am now, has an amazing textile heritage of its own as well. So I was just thinking, how can I just bring it back a little bit to share all these things that I really enjoy again with other people. And so I thought I'll just, to start with, do a capsule collection. And this is an upcycled collection, so it doesn't have garments made from scratch. It contains mainly vintage and some thrifted garments that have been transformed with hand sewing, with woodblock printing using vintage woodblocks from Nepal, and yeah, just made into some refreshed pieces that I really like and represent things that I love, and hopefully you will also be interested in. And I thought today I'll just share part 1 of the process of how I made this mini collection, and then if you're interested you can see some of the upcycling techniques I used and my inspiration. And then if you're interested in purchasing something from the collection, I'll also be able to share how you can do that. I'm actually wearing a dress from the collection. This is a piece of hand embroidery I actually did many years ago, and it was on a top, but I don't tend to wear crop tops, so I took it off and put it on this dress. But that's sort of an outlier. The main thing is these patches that my mom and I made on canvas, and then I hand sewed onto this garment, and there's a lot more like that. The inspiration is sort of the very early stages of autumn, because I wanted to keep it quite seasonal and have some plans for other seasons as well. So that's just the feeling I want to give, is handmade and crafts and things that you would wear if you're adventuring in the forest in Scotland or in Nepal or anywhere really. So yeah, those are my inspirations, and I'm going to take you through here just the start of my process. So please watch along and let me know what you think. Here's the fabric paint, textile paint that we're using, and some scraps of textiles just from old bits of jeans. That's actually some jeans that I hemmed in a previous video, and lots of other scraps just to use things up and to minimize waste. My mom is really good at textile printing, so she's the one taking over for this, and she's been collecting some wooden printing blocks from Nepal for many years. I'd always bring her some coming back from Nepal, and so we thought to make patches on these scraps of textiles and then use the patches to upcycle the garments for the mini collection. This is a beautiful floral piece from Nepal my mum made a shirt in, and this is a square of denim that we were just trying out, because these printing blocks are often used on large textiles such as saris, and they're often designed to be joined together to make the overall print of the textile. So joining the printing blocks is pretty difficult to align them, especially as you're just doing it by hand, and you can see amazing videos of artisans from all around the world, especially South Asia, doing this and just by hand amazingly aligning the printing blocks and creating these all over textile prints. So this was just more mending and experimentation to see how aligning it went on this piece of denim, but we didn't end up using this in the collection. It's going to be used for something else. This printing block we actually got in Patan in Kathmandu last time we were in Nepal, and I really love it because it's so graphic, so I think it goes with such a range of styles. You can see how much the camera is literally shaking because you have to press down really hard to get the textile paint onto the fabric, and the more texture the fabric has, the harder you sort of have to push it in, because if it has any ridges, it's going to be harder to get the textile paint into the ridges. Because we're using the wooden blocks, we're obviously using these traditional designs, but you could even use, I'm sure a lot of people have done this as children, a potato and carve the potato to do a similar printing method, although of course you can't reuse that over and over again. Or you could, carve in a bit of wood if you have some sharp enough tools, but that's going to be more difficult. Or you can do with lino cutting and print that way. So there are so many different ways that you can print if you want to do this yourself. You can also use rubber stamps from stationery shops, because they're intended to print on paper, but you can also put the textile paint on them and use them for printing. I really love this butterfly one. I think it's so cute, and this one's going to feature quite heavily in the collection. Just while we keep on printing, I'll talk a little bit about my inspiration for the mini collection. As I said, I'd been making collections for Clove Moon for a few years, but that was a while ago, and I thought it was always something in my mind that I love making clothes, I love the inspiration, but I think in today's climate, there needs to be something more, a reason why you're bringing something new when there are so many beautiful clothes that already exist and that just risk going to landfill and polluting the environment. So when I was using the traditional Newa Hakupatasi textiles, my reasoning was that by using these weaves, not only is the process of weaving often
very low impact because the looms don't use electricity if they're hand woven, and we'd use all the small pieces to make accessories as well as the clothing, but on top of that it helps to preserve a beautiful cultural tradition and just show it to more people and celebrate it, which is something I wrote about recently when I was in Nepal. Maybe I can put a link to that article where I wrote about how many fashion fanatics in Nepal and to everyday people are wearing these beautiful Hakpatasi textiles and other indigenous textiles or Nepali jewelry or clothing in a really like interesting and fusion way, and I think that's just so cool. And in my small way, being part of that or contributing to that was really, really fun and valuable. But if I'm not doing that, more than making clothes by hand and creating new things, I thought upcycling is a great way of taking garments that on their own they might not be quite stunning enough to really capture your imagination, to make you want to bring them into your wardrobe or wear them, but then adding details, mending, transforming them in order to make them a favorite piece of clothing in your or someone else's wardrobe. That to me is such a positive thing, and it's really fun. You're reusing things, you're trying to reduce waste as much as possible, and you're being really creative. Sometimes when you have more limited resources or you need to work with something that's already been created, I feel like that can sometimes push you to just do something a bit more interesting, or it can often lead to just more innovation or something that you would never have thought of. Here are the printing blocks. We use the white fabric paint first, and then we're just drying the different pieces of fabric draped over a chair. And I wanted to just show some of my mom's plants and this painting by my granny, and there was also a macrame piece by my mother-in-law there, and then just some prayer flags in the garden. Then back to the black fabric paint for the white canvas, another of my granny's paintings. We did the same printing blocks, so if you do white first, you don't have to worry so much about washing in between, because as you'll see at the end, you obviously need to wash all the printing blocks, and that's going to be quite a bit of work, and they're going to need to dry because they're wood. So again, just using a sponge to work the paint onto the block and then printing it. This is actually onto a piece of really old, about 100 years old piece of canvas that I believe was in my granny's collection of crafting supplies, and then you can see how the black looks on the canvas. This is a serpent. I think it looks so beautiful. I really love this one, and you can see whenever you do something by hand, each one is going to look different. Some are going to look crisper than others, but I personally just think that's all of part of the fun, and I will happily have things very obviously handmade. I really love that in the age of AI and everything just looking plastic and very uniform. Here I'm just working some gold fabric paint into this because due to the texture of the canvas, it didn't quite print really crisply, and then you'll see later on. Here we just had the parasol, we had a tree, and that's how the gold looked. Here's a border, so again you can see lining up the printing blocks, and then this would probably be used for perhaps a border around the edge of sari or a piece of textile, but here we're just making a long line. There are the washed printing blocks drying in the sort of sun. And I just wanted to include a shot of this pond that my parents dug and some of the beautiful flowers in the garden and a little bee. So while these were drying, you want to give them a good amount of time to dry so that when you wash the clothes later it's all fine. I got this skirt in a local charity shop and I really wanted it for myself, so I took it in. We also found this stunning hand-painted Nepali mandala in a local charity shop, and I found this handmade bangle for £2 in a local antique mart. Oh, and there was a local rummage sale, so I found this beautiful maroon skirt, which is vintage, for 50p, and I took it in because it didn't quite fit me, but sewing through that faux suede was quite the challenge. Another pair of vintage Topshop trousers I got for 50p, and I took those in as well. And then I just sewed the hook and eye closure on a cardigan of mine. Here are the clothes that I'd selected for my mini collection. This is part of a suit that I actually dyed black in a previous video and adjusted in a previous video. And then this was my grandma's. It was white and I dyed it purple a while ago. This was from a charity shop. They were going to throw it out because it had a defect that I'm going to cover. This was handmade by my tailor in Nepal, and then this is all the patches just laid out on a rug so I can get a good idea about how they look. I then just chopped them all into their individual squares and laid them out like this. I thought it was really fun just to see all of my different options, and then after looking at that, I'm going to be placing them on the garments to see where I think they should go. For some garments, I put a lot of patches, and for others, I put a little bit fewer just to give a different effect. I really loved how they looked on this waistcoat, and then as the sun sort of went away, it's a bit dark here, but you can see I'm just placing them all on, and then after that, I'm going to hand sew them all on. And that's what I'll be showing more of in part 2.
Thank you for watching my video today and seeing the first stage of bringing my capsule collection to life. Please do let me know what you think, and I'll be back soon with a part 2 where you'll see how some of the finished pieces actually turned out. And yeah, we'll see where it goes, and I'm very excited just to be moving back from solely creating with upcycling and sewing and everything for myself, and then just being able to perhaps offer it to other people who might be interested as well again, because I really enjoyed that before. I just loved meeting people who liked my creations and seeing them, and then sometimes even seeing them in the wild, which was really, really lovely. And then seeing them go to different countries and people wear them for different adventures, and maybe that will happen again. We'll see. It's quite hard to let go, honestly. Like, most of these pieces I think at least half I might have to keep for myself, because I think when you put so much love and effort into something, especially when you use your hands to create so much of it, you have such bond with that piece, or at least I do. So we'll see how many I can even let go of, but I'll try, and who knows, maybe no one will like them, and in which case I would just love to wear them. But if people like them and want to wear them, that will also be wonderful. Yeah, please come back soon. Subscribe if you like what I'm doing, and yeah, hope you enjoy following along with me on this journey to create more clothes in a sustainable way that celebrates different cultures and different craft techniques. So hope you have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!